Ladies and gentlemen, as always, welcome back to the BB-Scho. I'm your host, Beebs. As always, I'm joined by my co-host, Chen. We got a lot on the table today. We're going to go through the Week 14 games, run it down, and I'll lob it up to you. You can have your first crack at Baker Mayfield Mania from Thursday night. Would perhaps, ironically, we had just discussed if his career was dead or alive, and now it appears he's had, perhaps, in my opinion, probably his best performance of his career, given the stakes and the timing and just the way the media has praised him. I know you have a look on your
Oh
face like you're not enjoying the Baker Mayfield praise, but go ahead.
no, because you started off right away. You had Mania at the end, and I got like Tebow Mania, man. Like it's this is nothing new. Guys having a good game. Mike White went for 404 TDs. Now, did some of that, earn him a spot? Give him all right, but the people were coming out and like dying on this hill that Baker Mayfield is back and he's the starting quarter. Like, what are we doing? I mean, this guy had Christian McCaffrey and couldn't utilize him, and like, literally the only reason, and even the really the reason we're talking about it is a couple of things. One, why the Raiders went press, with 20 yards out. I have no idea. That was
Because it's
just
the
it
Raiders,
just
man.
speaks. It's just yeah, it's the lack of discipline and coaching. That was no shock. It was just like okay, and I'm sorry, up to that point, they had 10 points. So this drive, when like it's fluky, that was the biggest thing. That throw wouldn't have even happened if the Raiders just knew how to play some sort of prevent defense. But then there was the I don't know whose name it was. Don't know the dude. Doesn't really matter. It was just again spoke to the undiscipline of the Raiders. Went and smacked the ball out of Baker's hand. Somebody's hand on like I think it was like a 3rd and 10 or something like that. Like it gave the Rams a free 15 yards and first down when they really needed it. Because when you look at Baker's stats for the night, it was fine, especially given the circumstances. You could say it was good. But like, come on, are we really like, oh, this guy back in the league solidified because he went for 200 yards and a touchdown against a team that we know has major problems with not only coaching, penalties, consistency on either side of the ball. I mean, Derek Carr he had a couple decent throws to Devontae Adams, then he just decided to just disappear. You can say some of that is on play calling and whatnot, but
No,
like if
it's
I'm
it,
Derek
it's
Carr,
it's
like
on. Let me pull up
it makes
this.
of both, man. Because Derek Carr this whole season, I feel like just getting a pass. It's like, oh, it's just coaching, whatever. But like week in and week out, he's just so uninspiring. And it's kind of been his career path. I mean, I wouldn't really call this guy an elite because he has some games that have been bad. But I just feel like we're seeing a lot of bad this year, and it doesn't help with everything else that's going on with the Raiders. Um, so yeah, when people were basically just going out on a limb and saying this is like some crazy changing point, it's a good step in the right direction. Yeah, but he's going to be a backup next year, and he's like another really bad game away. We might even see at the end of this next couple of weeks from being back to where everybody viewed him, and that's out of the league.
Yeah, I mean, so I'll touch on the Raiders first. Here's this is a stat from mid game. So it says that he had 15 pass attempts. He got to 20. So he finished 11. Derek Carr finished 11 of 20, 137 and 2 interceptions. I think one of those was tipped or he was getting hits. One of them was bad. The other one was, it's going to happen, right? But Derek Carr has 20 pass attempts tonight. They've run the ball 30 times. Going into the game, he'd been averaging 35 points or 35 pass attempts per game. Now, what did they won? 4 out of their last 5. They'd been rolling. Devontae had been rolling. Uh, Also, the
I would say
Rams,
Jacobs was more
the
the
Ram, the oh, Devontae had been rolling. We can pull up his stats if you want me to. He
not
had
as
been
much as
rolling.
Jacobs.
Yes,
Jacobs
but
got more yards on the
they've
season.
been throwing the ball more than 20 times a game.
Yeah,
And the other side of this too is the week prior, in week 13, Geno Smith went for 367 and 3 touchdowns on the Rams defense. So there's really no excuse for I don't really care. Devontae, you can talk about this Jalen Ramsey matchup and how he neutralized him. And I think that there's some truth to that. You have a marquee matchup, two of the league's best in their positions going head to head. But Devontae in that second half didn't have a target. Okay. He didn't have a
yeah.
single target in the second half. And that's where my problem is. once again with Josh McDaniels, because what are we doing? He had two big ones in the first half. I understand. Look, he's not going to get the ball as much when he's playing a guy like Ramsey, right? Like I'm not expecting him to go for 9 for 180 and 3 touchdowns like he's been. That's an exaggeration, but you get my point. Um,
Yeah.
that doesn't excuse Carr's poor performance by any means, but to me, it just sheds light on the real issue here because in my mind, Derek Carr is proven. And we saw that last year. We've seen that his whole career. And by proven, I mean proven to be a ranked 10 to 20th quarterback in the league who's a very competent and has a higher ceiling than most quarterback. I'm not calling him elite. I'm not, we're not getting into the Joe Flacco debate of 2012,
Yeah.
but he is a proven competent above average starter. And I think you can agree with that. So look, Josh McDaniels, here's the reality is the more I look into it, because it's just fascinating me, they're not going to fire him. They can't. I'm pretty sure their owner came out and said
No.
they cannot afford to fire him. They literally don't have the money to fire Josh McDaniels,
Yeah.
which is astounding to me because they just
They gave a lot
moved
of
to a new
money to
city and
Gruden,
did all this
you
stuff.
know?
And yeah, I the game was poorly coached. There were times they could have been more aggressive, put more points on the board, and they didn't. They settled for field goals, and that allowed the Rams to come roaring back with 2 touchdowns because the Raiders only scored 16 points. It's just like, man, it's so clear to me what the issue is there, and I feel like everybody else sees it except the Raiders, and they're not going to do anything about it. And so I'm not a Raiders fan, so like I'm not upset about it, but it's just as a football fan, it's getting increasingly frustrating. The same way watching Nathaniel Hackett go out and coach a team every week. That's where Josh McDaniels is at, in my
That's
opinion.
fair. Yeah, I do not enjoy watching him coach, and that's I don't know. It's just again further solidifies the whole because I mean people were blowing up about this, the whole Baker Mayfield story that was just I still am just seeing other than
No, it's a cool
namesake.
story. I'll say this:
It's
it's a cool story, man. 98 yards, game-winning drive. He's back. He's against the wall. We said the day of we didn't know if he's ever going to play again. To do that is cool, man. Like 48 hours to learn the playbook. Like it's just a cool story. And I've always had a likency. Is that even a word? A likening for Baker Mayfield. If you go check the preseason podcast, I thought that he was going to be successful in Carolina. I thought it was a good fit. And I think that what this has taught me, and this is going on the assumption that he continues to have mediocre success with the Rams. This has taught me that his ceiling is game manager, which we kind of knew already, but like from a number one pick, you don't want that, and that's kind of the
right.
problem, right? With Baker Mayfield is he has higher expectations than he was drafted higher than he should have been, and he has higher expectations than I think that he is capable of getting to. I guess
Yeah.
capable of meeting. So I'll say this: if he was a third round pick, we'd all be going crazy about him, right? Like if Davis Mills had done this exact same situation, right? We'd be like, oh my gosh, this is incredible. Like, what a cool story. But because it's Baker Mayfield, he has higher expectations. I think that he could find a place in this league, but he's going to have a really good head coach. And that's what this has taught me. And look, they still should have lost the game. So, this is all based off one drive. I'm not going to overreact. I'm not going to say, but when I say Baker Mayfield Mania, I mean, it was fun to watch, man. And I'll give him credit. Like, I'll give credit where credit's due. That's kind of my motto, I guess. My thought process is like, man, good for him, right? Like, he probably needed that because he was probably at
Yeah.
rock bottom.
No, and I'll give the credit to McVay's coaching and the bozo on the Raiders that extended the
Oh,
drive
yeah. I mean,
along with the
Mayfield
press
needed a
coverage
couple
and the
things to
Raiders
go his way.
being aggressive for some reason when there's literally no reason for them to be aggressive. I mean, typical Raiders. But it's fine because both these teams stink. They're not going to be in playoffs going anywhere. And honestly, both these teams could have different quarterbacks next year from what it looks like. I mean, the whole
I don't know.
Carr marriage with McDaniels. Already hearing reports they're not going to cut bait with McDaniels. They got to get the money from somewhere.
I'd like to see
Losing Derek
Carr
Carr, that's
move
$30
on,
million.
but I think that's if Carr moves on, and this is going on hypotheticals. Maybe we can do this in an off-season podcast. But if they move on from Carr, I think that Devontae Adams might end up being thrown up there. Now the problem is he's continued to be productive, but Devontae Adams, that's going to need like a 30 for 30 I guess is what I'm getting at here. Like the sequence of events that led to him leaving Green Bay, which everybody, even Vikings, Bears, the Packers' biggest rivals, everybody in the world acknowledges that Green Bay is a better situation for Devontae Adams to be in, and they didn't understand why he wanted out.
Oh, yeah. Makes sense
So
now.
the sequence of events that led to that, and then just to go play with his college buddy who might not even be there after year one. What's he going to do? He can't demand a like he could, but they're just not going to trade him, So he's stuck, which is the reality,
Yeah.
especially if Carr leaves. So, not quite Le'Veon Bell, Melvin Gordon, like we talked about, because he's still incredibly productive. But yeah,
No, yeah.
it's
He'll
gonna
be
need a
around.
deep.
It's
It's
just
gonna need a deep dive, man.
yeah. No, it'll be entertaining to look forward to in this off season. I don't have much to say in terms of that game. Other than it was just a lot of incompetency on both ends, but cool story nonetheless. Noon games this week. A lot of picks were similar. Some of those, a good amount of them being right, but there were some that we were wrong. I mean, we've been pretty open on this show when we're wrong, and we'll just get right into it, man. Like the Vikings, their defense, I can
I've been
run it
saying
back to a couple days. I was like, I'm gonna take the Vikings. I understand why, going into Detroit, they're not favored. Their defense has problems, and this is prime for Detroit to roll because they weren't going to get to Goff. And oh yeah, they didn't get to Goff. He went for 300 something yards. And saw this morning when I woke up, one of the articles came out and was Detroit views Goff as their quarterback next year. No matter what happens with the season, they're going to roll with him. And that's going to be great for them draft wise. They're going to get better as a team and be just more in contention. But I kind of like the move because honestly, I'd have to go and check the exact stats, but Goff has been very efficient this year.
oh, their
He
offense is top
has.
10. Their offense
Yeah,
is
and
top
well,
10, and
even
he's top.
what
He's
he's
close
doing,
to top. He's
like
fringe top 10.
right.
In all, like, I'd have to look up the advanced statistics, advanced analytics, but he's fringe top 10 in almost every category.
Yeah, so got to give him his respect there. They're 6-7. I mean, they have a chance to finish the season over 500, and I think a lot of people going in viewed them as a couple win team. I know personally it was like great story. At
Well, I
best,
think
maybe
we
they get
both
to like
said
6 or 7
I think we
wins.
both said like 6 to 8 wins in the preseason podcast. I'd have to go
Yeah, that'd
back
be
and
like the
check.
good, that'd be the
That's
good
what we said.
story, right?
We
The
were like,
positive,
oh,
the
they'll
ceiling.
take a step up from last year, and still not. They're still. We both, and we've said it all season. Their defense is not quite there. And how many games have
No.
they lost because they gave up 40 points, right? Like they scored 35.
Yeah.
Like they could be realistically if they just gave up even 28 points every game, they could have like 2 or 3 more wins. I think so. Think about
No, they're
that.
right there. Yeah.
When it comes to golf, I'm happy that I was going to push this, not necessarily a narrative, but I was just going to say, man, like, I'm glad you're not going to push back because I'm just going to say, like, I'm starting to really question why he gets so much flack. Like, he has his flaws. Don't get me wrong. Like, you get him off his spot, he struggles. He struggles under pressure.
That's really the biggest thing. It's like if he's not on the spot, you look at as much people want to critique it, like they have the weapons right now. Even without Hawkinson, they saw Jameson Williams wide open today. Amon-Ra St. Brown.
Well, like,
They
this is
got
just
whoever in the slot with Josh Reynolds and whatnot.
like
Chark.
Jared Goff. I just feel like I'm definitely guilty of this. I just forget that this guy, he went to a Super Bowl, guys. Like, he led a team to
And
a
only
Super
scored 3
Bowl.
points.
I mean, the
With
Patriots only
Todd
scored
Gurley.
10. So
I want to
13.
stop you before you contradict what we talked about the quarterbacks getting too overrated. We talked about the Dilfers, the Jimmy G getting there, like guys that
No,
were
that's
bus
what
riders,
here's what
and
I'm
he's
no, I'm not gonna
clearly a bus rider on that Rams team. I have to like
I'm
they had
not
3
saying that at all.
points.
What I'm saying is I feel like golf gets thrown in with this crowd of quarterbacks that's like, oh, we cannot have him be our guy for more than one more year because he is just absolutely abysmal, right? Like this, like Mitch Trubisky tier of
Yeah, see, and that's
quarterback,
the other end of the
Marcus
spectrum where it's like, yeah,
Mariota tier of quarterback. Where like, yeah, I love my Mariota, but like I can see that, but like I'm just saying, like I think that we need to put Goff in the Garoppolo tier, right? Like we need to put him in the Tannehill. in the Tannehill discussion, right? Like he is very capable and proven, and for them to ride with him next year I'm very happy because I think that he could take them to the playoffs. I don't think Goff is the guy to deliver a Super Bowl to Detroit. Okay, I'm not saying that. However, I could see Goff taking Detroit to the playoffs potentially this year if things go the right way, or if not for sure when they get a better defense, right? So obviously you wait a whole year, injuries come into play, whatnot. But I just am starting to, because I definitely have been guilty of just like, oh yeah, that dude's trash. Like he's terrible. Why would they make that trade? And it's like, in my opinion, obviously the Rams got a Super Bowl out of it, but I don't think the Lions lost that trade by any sense.
No, they probably got the best, end of it in terms of, I believe.
I mean, if I'll
one of
say
those
this,
picks gave him Jameson Williams or Sewell. I believe. I don't know who it was.
I
But
think
now they have a really high pick this year, and it's
I'll
like,
say this: if the Rams didn't win the Super Bowl last year, I would go as far to say as I think that the Lions, I would potentially be considering the Lions to have fleeced the Rams if they didn't win that Super Bowl.
oh, it would be comparable to the Russ trade in the sense you make that trade to win a Super Bowl because you
It
look at what the
wasn't.
Rams are now. They
Yeah.
have no
Well, you
future
got to.
going
There's other
forward.
factors that went into the Rams going all in, like the Von Miller. Or did they trade for him or
Right.
something? No, they traded for him.
No, yeah, that was mid-season deal. I mean,
So there's other
was nice.
factors that go into them going all in and it paying off, which is the one time that strategy's ever worked in any sport ever, I swear. And it's starting to get annoying how many teams are trying to copycat it when they're not contending team.
The Lakers kind of got it with LeBron and AD. Took them a year.
Yeah, I
mean,
guess.
like
I guess
it really is. Then I've seen
that.
this move happen for a championship, but in terms of like longevity and building a solid team and contender for years, you're not gonna do that. You're basically whoever you went and got, whenever their career's over, your franchise is over.
Yeah.
I mean, we see Stafford; he's pretty much done, given the history of his injuries and what he's got around him. So, in part, the Rams are gonna be done for, I'm gonna say, probably next 2 or 3 seasons at least. And that's why we're talking about McVay. Like he's
but
young,
we're
but
saying,
who wants to coach that?
The Rams don't even have picks in those 2 or 3 years either. So it's really like,
right. That's what I mean. Like,
in my
they're
opinion,
completely
it's
shot.
4 to 8 seasons unless they can offload all their assets and get some sort of picks back. Like,
oh man, the Cooper Cup trades would be nuts.
I don't think he would be. Here's
Hypothetical.
the thing with, and we can talk about that another time, honestly. But to circle back to the Vikings, and you mentioned Penny Sewell, I want to give a shout out to him for the reception today because that was hilarious.
Oh yeah, no one saw
I
coming.
loved it. I loved it.
Great
and I
play
love.
call.
You know what, man? I saw an article too. Dan Campbell, I believe it was last week. He was like, "Yeah, I was going to get fired a couple weeks ago if we didn't turn it around, and now I'm very confident in my job security." And like we always said, like, don't fire him. It'd be stupid, right? Like at this point. But yeah, I'm just a fan of this Lions team. When it comes to the Vikings, man, you hit the nail on the head. And before we move on, this defense cannot win a championship.
Plain and simple. They're gonna get exploited bad.
They lost today, and Kirk Cousins went 31 of 41 for 425 yards with 2 touchdowns and no interceptions. They lost today, and Justin Jefferson had 11 for 223, and they lost by 2 scores. Think about that. Think about that. What more can they get out of this offense? We talk about how star-studded their offense is, and it is. Look at these numbers, right? Like, this kid is incredible. He's probably one of the better receivers I've ever watched in my lifetime, but they lost by 2 scores, man. It's like when Steph, 2 or 3 years ago, the COVID year, would go for like 50 and they'd lose by 20. It's like, what more can this man do? They've got nobody.
Yeah.
Right? So it's just incredibly alarming how poor this defense is. And the fact that the people see it, man. The Lions were favored to win this game.
Now we see why.
Yeah. Moving on, we can transition to the first AFC North matchup of the day with Ravens Steelers. So you had Ravens here. The trust is it Tyler? It's Tyler Huntley, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Tyler Huntley.
And
I was thinking
I believe he got
Tyrese.
knocked out with a concussion, but it still didn't matter. This was like as predictable as AFC North as it gets. Um,
Yeah, what?
like the
16,
final was
14
yeah, like
Ravens Steelers.
below 20 points, both teams. Trubisky had a typical Bears day, filling in for Pickett. Um,
I have a question
yeah,
for
and
you.
I guess yeah, go
I have a
for it.
question for discussion regarding Trubisky and Pickett. Um, I guess it's just open ended. Like, where are you at on Pickett right now? Like, scale of 1 to 10.
I
Today's
would say
obviously an
like
exception, but
I'll give them 6 in the sense that like I don't think people expected the Steelers to be competitive ish. Like they're definitely having a bad season. But given he's not even really been able to lean on Najee, and I've always hated Matt Canada, their offensive coordinator, I just think is so bad. And the fact that Pickett hasn't looked abysmal, I'm not going to say he's lit the world on fire, but he's not showing any concerns. If that makes sense, like he's like on the trajectory of like he's gonna be fine. He should be a good quarterback. He
yeah,
should be do well in the Steelers system once they can their OC this season. And I'm assuming they're going to bring in somebody because it's Pittsburgh. I mean, players do love to play there. Tomlin is a fantastic head coach. I just think they got to do some retooling. But on the Ravens side, it's an impressive win considering they went to Anthony Brown, which I'm assuming is a guy who's either very late drafted or undrafted, similar to Tyler Huntley, and they still won the game. It wasn't pretty, but to win games without your guy and Lamar Jackson, and it's not like they have a lot of people to throw to outside of Mark Andrews. Solid win for the Ravens, and they got to play that kind of defense to win in the playoffs.
I think that's a fair assessment. I don't have much to add other than I really did not expect the Ravens to win this game. I think Pickett going down is somewhat of a factor. Um,
Oh
but
yeah,
yeah,
because the problem with Trubisky is he doesn't try and push it downfield. And when you
yeah,
do, you
Pickett.
see what happens: 3 interceptions. Pickett can at
Yeah,
least do that.
I'd give Pickett a 6.5. I'm pretty. I'm feeling maybe even a 7. I'm feeling pretty good about him. Not like he's going to be this world beater Mahomes esque like superstar,
Yeah,
but
but he's on pace to be good. I
like
agree. Like that's
the
a
question
six,
is like
man. Like
could he be Big Bet? And I honestly I could see it.
I don't want to say same player, but on that
Not
caliber,
as
totally agree. Like
yes
he's gonna have his
caliber
good
wise.
games. He'll probably be pretty good. But he can move around
He's
like
going to win a lot
quicker.
of games. He's going to be there, be in Pittsburgh a long time, and he's going to get carried
Yeah,
by some really good Steeler defenses, and maybe win a Super Bowl too. Like that's what the Steelers do. So
yeah.
you
Helps
know,
having TJ Watt.
yeah, exactly. All right, so going to the other AFC North matchup today, Bengals Browns. Burrow finally gets his first win ever against the Browns. They'd won 5. They'd lost 5 straight. And I just want to say this. I didn't realize this until I looked this up, but uh, the Bengals have won 5 straight, and they're now 9-4, like well into the AFC playoff picture. And it's just like
Yeah,
this to me is what's the equivalent of this in like basketball terms? Like just the team that like it's like the Cavs when LeBron was there, right? Like they'll just coast and then they'll turn it on and they're going to be right in the Super Bowl race at the end of the year. Like I'm so
yeah.
confident in this team in big games. It's really like, and they didn't even play well today. They really didn't. Burrow,
No,
not
it was an
great.
average day for them, and you really, I thought from the Brown side of things, they would have played a little bit better, considering this is one of the games they kind of needed to
They
get.
can't get this is 2 weeks in a row with Deshaun Watson and Nick Chubb is like under 40 rushing yards.
Yeah, like,
It's
I don't know what
not
the
good. They're
deal
getting
is.
I feel like
They
they're
look
getting away
worse.
from their identity. I honestly I'm not surprised they look worse. The
Yeah,
guy
it's not a
didn't.
surprise, but yeah, it's got to be pointed out. Like,
But what's concerning to me is the lack of like commit. They were so good at running the ball, and now it seems like there's a lack of commitment to it. Oh, we got this new toy, right? Like he's this former MVP candidate, and like, yeah, he's great, but like, don't change who you are when you have who was the lead. I don't know if he still is, but was the league's leading rusher for a majority of the season.
oh, who does that sound like? Maybe the Colts of this beginning of the season?
That's
moving
not a
away
bad
from the
analogy.
identity of you, Jonathan Taylor, and you're not giving him 25 to 30 touches a game.
It's not a
Like
bad analogy.
it's right. Like Nick Chubb, by definition, I mean, you can compare him to like maybe Saquon Barkley and whoever, is similar to the Jonathan Taylor of last year. Best running back in the league. Why? And again, game flow, whatever. You can say what you want. Bengals didn't put up enough points for I think they should have abandoned the run. I get you're trying to get Deshaun Watson integrated, but
I think that's the bottom line.
uh,
Honestly, I think that
it's
they know they're not making the playoffs, and they are
yeah,
just
it's kind of it.
yeah.
Nail in the coffin.
I'll be honest. I think Brissett deserves a starting job somewhere. I really do. He's
Oh
never
yeah,
been bad.
he
He's
could
just
start for like the Saints right now.
start for
Even the
Indianapolis.
Colts, right? Like they moved off him, which is funny because he actually was pretty solid when he was there. But that's just kind of who he is. Like he just plays well. No one really cares. But
Yeah, but no, you're not
yeah, it is
wrong.
what it is. Yeah, like he'll stick around the NFL though, because at the end of the day, teams, as much as say they don't care, it's because he's not flashy. He's not like a team when you're watching on Sundays, you're happy that he's your quarterback. Now, I don't think that's necessarily fair, but it's just the facts. Like he's not flashy. He's not gonna go out and
Yeah,
just be
but I just feel
crazy
like the
and like a
Browns are
Mahomes.
constructed to not need that.
Oh, I'd
Like
agree.
they can
I
run the
wish
ball, they
teams would
play good
accept
defense.
that more, like the Lions. Like accept what you got. It doesn't get much better, and I think a
Yeah,
lot
I
of teams
mean
would be better off.
that's the real question is how many guys are going to come through the draft in the next 3 years that are a better option than Jacoby Brissett or Jared Goff? Maybe
Not
five,
too many,
maybe five, if that.
right?
Right? Like,
And that's if
what
you're
are the
willing to
odds that
burn a
you're?
first round pick.
Yeah, and then you got to take that risk because it could be way less than five. It could be more, but probably not. And so, yeah, I think that that's a very good point. That he's not bad.
Yeah, solid starter in the league.
Did you see? So this is a growing trend with the Bengals, and maybe I just am annoyed because I'm a T Higgins owner. But
That's fair.
they took him off. This is now the second or third time they've done this year. This is the second time they've done it with Higgins. I think they did it with Chase and somebody else. It might be the fourth time they've done this year. And Twitter was really mad, obviously, because fantasy and gambling. But somebody brought up the point, and this is what they did: is they took Higgins off of the final injury report and then just didn't play him. He dressed and then just didn't play. I don't even know if he dressed, but he wasn't on the injury report this morning and
Really?
didn't play for a hamstring issue that was a coach's decision. So people have said this point. I maybe I'm salty because I'm a Higgins owner in multiple leagues and it's playoff season for fantasy, but if the NFL, this is the point they're making, is the NFL is going to make all these partnering with FanDuel, DraftKings, all these gambling partnerships. That can't happen. You can't have a team lying about a guy's injury status. And I understand from the Bengals perspective, I would do the same thing. Like, I'm not that up in arms about it, right? Like, my fantasy team does not matter to Zach Taylor. But there is a level of like, it's a little like, it's a slippery slope. If the NFL, it'd be one thing. The NFL has these partnerships now. So it becomes a slippery slope where you should have to designate this guy on an injury report. I mean, he was marked as completely healthy going in, and he was limited in
Yeah.
practice, and they didn't tell anybody, or like he was limited in practice. He was questionable. Then they took him off the injury report. He wasn't still questionable this morning, right? He was going to
Right.
go, and then he doesn't play at all. So, look, maybe I'm just bitter. I probably am a little bit, but I think that's. I don't know. What's your thoughts?
I'm actually, I'm glad you acknowledge you're bitter, but I'm also going to back you up in the sense that this could lead to a problem down the line, because the whole point of having the injury report is for those reasons. Like it's not even for gambling reasons; it's for the NFL reasons, like their partnerships with merchandising and all these little things that like may not really matter, but it's like something they're supposed to disclose. And you know every team follows these rules. I believe the Saints even got fined recently. I believe the Bengals are going to get fined if they haven't, because I saw play with Jesse Bates in the Chiefs game. I don't know if you saw that clip
I
going
saw.
around
I saw. Well,
where
they
like they
find
were making
Jesse Bates
subs. Yeah,
and
like
they
they were making
find
subs and
Zach
he
Taylor.
just laid down. Yeah, like he straight up like there he saw Bates sees, oh, subs are coming in, and just lays down. It's like, all right, so you strip the Dolphins of, pick for the integrity of the game thing with, paying Brian Flores to tank games and whatever. I think this is firmly in the conversation as well. Like, I'm sorry, a player just, oh, I'm gonna fake timeout, or fake an injury to get like a timeout at the end of the games. That's not NFL, man. I'm sorry,
Yeah,
that's not
I
football. You don't see that in any other level. So that's what I mean. When I see the Bengals doing that on top of this, it's like they're trying to gain an edge, and I don't like it. You're gaining an edge, and when we just talked about, they don't need to. They're 5-0 in their last games, and it's not really yeah, it's not written in the rule book like currently, and they need to like put things in place. It's kind of like with the hack shack thing in the NBA and whatever. Like, you, people start to find exploits, you got to patch them, in the words
yeah,
of Cod.
yeah.
And Roger Goodell, is bad of a commissioner as he can be sometimes, needs to step up and patch this, essentially, is where I'm going with it.
I do think
But I
it's
don't think you're that
also
bitter.
to play devil's advocate. I think regarding Jesse Bates, I think it's clear that he was faking, and this is obviously like, yeah, don't do that.
He was engaged, like calling plays, whatever. He sees like PJ Reed or somebody else
Oh
coming in.
yeah,
He's like, oh man, and it just drops. I'm like,
but to find somebody, I believe he got fined 50K. So to find somebody 50K for faking an injury without a confession of faking an injury, like obviously he came back in the game and all this. So like, yes, we know he faked it, but like to me, there's a level to where that gets a little like, I don't know if they should do that, because that's like, what if he's actually hurt? Right? Like, what if he just like there are freak things that happen where it's like, oh, I sprained my ankle walking.
that,
So
but
like regarding
that's
Jesse Bates this time, obviously he was faking. Okay, I'm not denying that, and this is probably worthy of doing that. But it's just like, I think Goodell gets so fine happy sometimes that it's like it's
no, that's
too
fair.
much.
It's just a matter of, they have the appeal system. They got a bunch of cameras on them and whatever. They
Yeah,
got, like, I believe, like a due process. So like you're saying, they don't get too crazy with this. But when it's clear what the Bengals are doing in this instance, I believe it needs to be addressed.
I would agree.
That's
I
just,
would agree.
2 cents on the issue, but we can move
Yeah,
on because, it's pretty clear. Bengals are rolling and Browns are dead.
yeah.
Um,
So moving on, we'll transition to the AFC East here. Bills, Jets. We both were right. The Jets aren't going to beat the Bills twice in one season, and the Jets' playoff hopes are starting, in my opinion, to waver. I think they're still in a decent spot, but
yeah, I'd have to check their schedule. I think they should be all right, but it's
let's check
concerning.
it.
It's concerning, especially if Mike White still has a set of ribs. I
So
mean, he took
yeah,
some shots today. Like,
so they got four
I've never
games
seen.
left. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. Sorry.
They got 4 games left. They got Lions, Jaguars, Seahawks, and Dolphins. And
Lions.
I think they win 2 of those, and that puts them at 9-7. Like, I don't see them beating the Dolphins.
That just sounds like a split. Yeah, that schedule's
And it's like,
a
oh, I
lot of
could see them
inconsistent
losing to the
teams in there.
Lions. Who knows what the Jaguars are going to do, if they're going to show up, and we'll get to them.
Well, who knows what the Seahawks are going to do?
Yeah,
Like, those are
exactly.
a whole
And
bunch,
this
like,
is, and that's
three
in
teams. Like,
Seattle
who
too,
knows?
and it's in
Oh
Seattle.
boy.
So yeah, obviously, if the
Mm.
Jets win out and get to 11-6 during the playoffs, but I don't know about that.
Yeah, I think they get half, man. That's very unpredictable stretch there. Um, and I did just want to touch on the Mike White thing, because I've never seen a dude get so hard, and it's probably happened, but just in my viewing experience, never seen a guy get hit in the ribs so hard. Like, after the play, he was like grabbing, like rolling, and like he got killed, man. Like, in the slow mo, it was like he was getting snapped in half, and the fact he was able to finish that game, I gotta tip my hat. Like, we brought up the Herbert thing,
Gutsy.
making the throw after gutsy. That is like he should have been in a wheelchair, like just for precautionary to ease like the pain on his body. Oh man, took some shots today, but I really I understand there's not a whole lot of positive takeaways losing 20-12, but like we brought up before the show, that was a snow game. You know what I mean? That's something
You
that
knew
needs
it
to be
was going to be
taken
low
into account.
scoring too. That Jets
Yep,
defense is
division
really a
rival
divisional
against the
rival.
Bills. Yeah, like the Bills are a solid defensive unit. I'm looking at the fact that Mike White, for what it's worth, was under duress that entire game, clearly in physical pain. They
No
still threw it like
turnovers.
40 something times. Yep.
Yeah.
And no turnovers. So he's clearly providing a dynamic to the Jets where it's like, I'm confident they win 2 more games from here. Which ones I really don't know. And if they're going to be good enough at 9-8 to get that 7th spot in the AFC, I think it really all depends how the rest of the teams shake out. But as for the Bills, I mean, you can't be much happier. They're at 10-3.
Yeah.
I mean, they're
They
right up in
clinch.
there.
I'm
I believe
assuming
they got to be
clinched.
close. I don't think they
Playoffs, I
technically
believe.
did, but yeah, they're right up in there with the Bengals and Chiefs right now.
Which is what you'd expect from the AFC, nothing less.
Right. And you know it was gonna be a pretty game. Like the Jets are an elite defensive unit. Like
Yeah,
it's
they got. That's why I'm so
they're
high
right
on
there
the
with the
Jets.
Niners with me. Like
I think the
favorite,
Jets are a year away, in my opinion. They are
like
really
actually your way,
they're a
not like
year, and
a
it might not even
hypothetical.
be
Like
like no, it might not even be like they're basically, in my opinion, they're getting Brees Hall back. It's not like I'm like, oh, they
it's not
need.
like they need to go out and make a move. Right.
Yeah, like
I
they don't
agree with
need
you.
to
They're
get
just internal
rid of
improvement will
Mike
be
White.
enough.
Like I think it's like, oh, you have an entire offseason with Mike White, you just commit to him being your guy. I think you
Yep.
could take another step, and then you get your superstar running back, and it's like you already got a really solid receiving core. Garrett Wilson's a stud. All these things, and that defense is incredible. Like they're right there. So while they didn't get the
Absolutely.
breaks this year, they were ironing out their quarterback situation, and then obviously the ACL tear from Hall is not going to help them.
Yeah.
They're right there, man. They're right
Yeah.
there.
Just like the Lions. I mean, the Lions hit on the Dan Campbell hire.
I think
I'm
they're closer
firmly
to the line. I
convinced.
would take the Jets. I think the Jets are closer.
Oh, I would yeah, I think they're further along with the Lions. I was just saying in terms of the coaching aspects, like
Yeah, we've
Dan
seen
Campbell,
three.
people were kind of up and down. He's it. Robert Saleh, I know people were up and down offensively. Like his team's not that great. Head coaching wise, he's been fine. He's got Michael Flores as OC, and I think they really hit on that hire as well.
Yeah, and I think the
Personally,
other one to throw out there, and I know they're struggling, and we'll get to them, but the Giants hit on Dable as well. So three
oh for
big
sure.
hires in the last couple of years to really help some of these rebuilds, which is very interesting discussion when it comes to like
Yeah.
coaching. But all right, we can move on to what was perhaps one of the biggest upsets of the year. Cowboys get to 10-3, barely.
Mm-hmm.
They barely sneak by the
Very barely. Yeah.
Texans. Score at the end. Are you concerned with Dallas?
Yeah, I mean, my concerns I've just brought it up is Dak Prescott. I mean, as of late, has been playing almost worse than Tony Romo, and we've seen in the past these Dallas teams, they have all the talent, but they never like find a way to get it done. And I've never been convinced that they've had really a good coach since Jimmy Johnson in the '90s. That's just my own opinion.
Well, I mean, I know how McCarthy's story ends in the playoffs.
Right,
So
and
I've seen
I
that
get
one.
people are gonna think I'm undermining him and just bad blood for being a Packers coach. I think he was fine in like the 2010s, but like he just never really evolved as a coach. And yeah, I think it should be concerning the fact that he knew how to beat this team. It was run, keep the ball in your hands, don't turn it over, and Dak Prescott's still shooting you in the foot
Yeah,
against a team that has literally given nobody problems all year. Why is it giving you problems with CeeDee Lamb, Michael Gallup,
could just
James
be a trap
Washington came
game.
back?
Like it could just be a trap
And
game.
we can say that, but like the Packers game, I think a lot of people could consider that was a trap game. Like they've had a couple of these now where they're really
Look,
great, everything's
if
clicking, but like
today,
if he has a bad game, like he kind of just throws the entire offense off course.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Look, if today taught me anything, it's that the Eagles are leaps and bounds ahead of any other team in the NFC, except maybe the Niners. And we'll get to the Niners, but yeah.
Yeah, that's
Um,
fair.
I,
Fair way to look at it.
I do want to say this: Texans plus 17.5 was the freest money I've ever gotten in my entire
That's
life.
such a large spread, no matter who you're playing.
Yeah, I have a policy where if I ever see a spread over 9.5 points, like I'm taking it no matter what
Yeah,
because it hits at such a high rate. I also hit Jets plus 10.5 today. Like it's just like
free
it's
money.
yeah, it was plus
It's
10.5. It's free money, man. Like 17.5 points. Yeah, yeah,
that's
free
three
money, man. People
scores.
are fools if they take that, right? Like, that's how they
Yeah,
get you. But
that's why you put that spread on America's team, because you want a bunch of America's team,
well, and they're coming off
stands.
that win a couple weeks ago against the Vikings where they 37-3 or whatever it was. So it's like people have that
Yeah, and the
fresh in their
Giants on
mind.
Thanksgiving. No, I know where you're coming from, but
No, I
no,
mean I made the money, man. So
yeah,
I took
very fair.
advantage. But all right, so we mentioned the Eagles. Um, look, this is like the third or fourth time they've gone like over 45 points. I think I could be wrong, but it feels like it. Let me look this up.
No, they're very electric, and I actually don't have a whole lot to say. This
They were
is
up
probably
21 to
expected
0
as it
like
was.
3 minutes into the game. And they've done that 2 weeks in a row. So they had 48 today, 35 last week, 40 against the Packers, 17 against the Colts. They lost to the Commies, 35 against the Steelers. I mean, they are scoring a lot of points. 38 against the Lions in week one. I'd love to know what their scoring average is, but I'm not going to do the math or look it up. So
It's up
yeah,
there though.
electric is the right word. And here's why. Okay. Hertz goes 21 of 31 for 200 yards and 2 touchdowns. Miles Sanders goes 17 for 144 and another 2 touchdowns. I mean, these are like high school football numbers. Hertz has
Yeah,
77 yards rushing and another touchdown. Boston Scott has a touchdown because why not? And Devonta Smith and AJ Brown, man, we need to. I don't know if there's a better duo in the league right now.
I'd probably personally have Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle.
Oh yeah, yeah. Okay, they're top two then because I forgot
It's
about
up
that.
there.
Maybe
It's up
Chase and
there. Yeah,
Higgins, but Higgins never plays, so
yeah.
or like they never had the
Depends on the
field.
team. I will say this: I think Sirianni and his scheme, whatever he's got cooking down there, the fact everybody can just eat, like it doesn't matter what they run, it's just works. So they got some crazy play calling down there and schemes and whatnot, because this isn't new. I mean, we going in, it was like, well, if the lockdown Saquon, the Giants are not going to be able to play catch up, and that's exactly what happened.
Yeah.
I don't know if you have any other takeaways, but I
Not
know that the
regarding the
Giants,
Eagles. No.
yeah,
Look, the Giants. If you go listen, we've been saying you don't even need to go to the preseason podcast. Just look at literally any podcast.
you've been
I
calling them
really think I've
fraudulent like
said
week to
this
week,
all year. Like
and
their roster is they overperformed on the first half of the year. And I think they're regressing to the mean a little bit. And
yep,
the roster is really good, and they got their coach, and that's like the biggest takeaway from this year. And I think it's a Goff-esque situation with Daniel Jones as well, like where they're not going to have a chance to get a super good prospect. So like you're probably going to need to ride with him next year, and I think he's earned it this year. He's played the best year of his career. So, um, but they're just missing juice now. When their entire offense ran through Saquon, and today he had 9 carries for 28 yards. And I know there's game script and all that, but like earlier in the year, man, he was getting like almost 30 carries, going for 102 touchdowns. It felt like every single week, and he has just completely lost the juice because they have nothing else on offense. Their receiving core is abysmal, and I don't think their defense is great either. And so I don't
no,
think they're going to make the playoffs. If you ask me, I've said that for a couple of weeks now. This just confirmed it. They're definitely not going to win a playoff game, depending on who they play. But if they make it. But I don't know. Do you have any other takeaways other than this is just kind of validating what I've been saying?
yeah, like it was pretty clear that I thought the Giants had no shot in this. It's when it was 21-0, like you said, pretty early. It's like, all right, they already neutralized Saquon. I mean, no matter if
Yeah.
he rips off 2 long touchdown runs, they're still 7 points in the hole. Like the Eagles just match up so much better than this team, and It showed. That's
Yeah,
really all I gotta say.
I think that's well said. All right, so let's go back to the AFC South here. Or go back. We haven't talked about them yet, but Jaguars Titans. We briefly mentioned the Jaguars today.
Yeah,
Um,
big day for Trevor Lawrence
yeah,
and
this is
Evan
what
Ingram.
Trevor Lawrence is like a mini version of the Chargers, like relegated to one player. It's like, oh, half our games were going to be incredible. We're going to win. The Chargers, like, oh, we'll
Sheesh.
get one game above 500, then we'll lose. Lawrence is like, we're going to have an incredible game, and I'm going to be bad, and then I'm going to go 30 for 42, 368, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, incredible efficiency. We're going to throw the ball over the field. And we're going to do it without giving the ball to Travis Etienne at all, who's our most electric
Yeah.
I'm going to make Evan Ingram into prime Kelsey for no reason at all. 11 for
Love it.
162 and 2 touchdowns. Just like, what is going on? I guess like with the Jaguars, they kind of are in a similar situation as the Chargers, where I think they're a little. Lawrence is not quite as good as Herbert, but they basically just ride or die with him week to week, and that's kind of like where they're
I
at.
think they're better coached. And I almost think that it's like we said a year away with the Jets. They're not like as good as the Jets, clearly, but they're probably, even if this roster stays the same, gonna be verge like fighting for a playoff spot next year, in my opinion.
Well,
Because
they're
I just
not.
don't think Trevor Lawrence is gonna be like, he's had some games that were just duds, and I think a lot of those are just gonna get cleared up because you see what he does today against the Titans, who have plenty of game film on him, given it's a division opponent. And I mean, Mike Vrabel and a team that's usually really stingy defensively could not stop. And if
Yeah.
Evan Ingram is able to do that, yeah, you could say some of that's on Tennessee, but I just really think that the Jags, we've seen so many flashes this year. Going back to the Ravens week, I'm convinced that all they got to do is just get some consistency, which just another year of Doug Peterson and Trevor
Yeah,
Lawrence,
some
it's going to
upgrades to
iron
the
that out.
defense, some upgrades to the
Yeah.
line.
I think they're just
Get
fine and on a
Calvin
really good
Ridley in
trajectory as
there.
well.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
would agree. So I'm going to present something to you. Okay, and I might be crazy for this. Might be crazy.
Mm.
Jaguars are 5-8. They now have a win against the Titans. The Titans are 7-6, and have lost.
Wow.
The Titans have lost 3 straight. So Titans haven't won since they were at Lambeau,
Yeah.
however long ago that was. The Titans have a win on the schedule. Okay, they're playing the Texans. They're going to beat the Texans. They play the Jaguars again in Week 18, which that's why I'm going. But they play the
Mm.
Chargers next week, which I could see them
Depends what the
losing that
Chargers
game.
record
Yeah,
is. Yeah.
depending, but they could lose that game. Okay, then they play the Cowboys in Week 17, and I'm going to be honest. I don't see them beating the Cowboys. I don't. I don't
Mm.
foresee that. So we're not in a situation where the Titans are kind of have their backs against the wall. They're on top of the division. They have a 2-game lead, but I could see the Jaguars potentially coming in and stealing this. And let me pull up the Jaguars schedule like just to confirm. So the Jaguars do have the Cowboys next week. They have the
Exciting for the
Texans.
Jags to get 2 games.
The Jaguars are going to have to get 2 games, and they have Cowboys, Jets, Texans, Titans. So we're assuming that they'll get the Titans. This is all running on the assumption that they get the Titans twice. They beat them twice, which I don't know if we can guarantee that, but I'm just putting it out in the realm of possibility, because then they have a Thursday night game in 2 weeks against the Jets. I'm probably going to lean towards the Jets, but if they're gonna keep playing like this, then I'm taking the Jaguars almost against a lot of teams in the league. So, and then the Texans is a win. So the Titans are clearly favored to take this division, but I just want to raise concerns in about 3 weeks' time. I just want to be there to say that I said it. So that's basically what I'm doing.
No, yeah,
It's just
there's a
possible.
path. There's a
There's a
path and
there's a
possibilities there.
and it's all riding
You
on
know.
Lawrence if he plays like this. I think they're
Yeah.
as good as anybody when he plays like this. So we can move on though. AFC West, we talked about the Chargers a little bit, but haven't played yet. Chiefs Broncos. Scored more than 17 points, and they still lost.
It's just in typical Broncos country. We'll call them that fashion. So Russell Wilson finally gets to the point where I think he's maybe tied or like a touchdown short of getting that bathroom total for his
But now
the
he's
amount he
hurt.
has in his houses. Now he's hurt, yeah, so he might end up just not getting it. It didn't really make a whole lot of sense to me. I think it was more just the Chiefs playing sloppy here. They gave the Broncos a lot of extra possessions,
Mahomes had 3
and the
picks.
Broncos, right, and the Broncos still lost. So it was more of like I think the Broncos just at a certain point in the year, like a blind squirrel will always find a couple nuts during a day. Like he just
Dang.
roams around. I think the Bengals, not the Bengals, the Broncos throughout the year, like, oh, they got a couple drives that probably would have scored in other games that all just hit today. And
Yeah.
now they're never going to probably go over 20 points the rest of the year.
Yeah. It's a good way to
If we're
put
just
it.
being honest,
I am
I'm never going to pick this team. They are in that Rams boat of they got a lot of problems and not a lot of solutions with how to fix
yeah.
them.
I'm a little upset.
Shoot.
I'm looking at the box score and I was trying to decide this week. Thought I made the right choice, but now I realize I didn't. Um, I had a big fantasy matchup to make the playoffs of one of my leagues, and it was between picking up Jerick McKinnon or Zonovan Knight, and Knight ended up
Ooh.
scoring a touchdown. And I was like, oh, I made the right choice. And now I'm looking at the box score, and I don't know how I missed McKinnon having 7 catches for 112 yards and 2 touchdowns. But
Yeah.
yeah, and I ended up losing. So I don't know if it would have made it might have made a difference, but yeah, that one stings a
Judy had a
little bit.
good game too, 3 touchdowns.
It's about time, man.
Yeah.
It's about
Yeah.
time that they start getting through the air. They have decent receivers in Russell Wilson. So, well, not anymore,
Oh yeah.
but
Convinced Judy anywhere else would like be a pretty household name by now. And that might be going out on a limb, but I'm seeing the way like Devontae Smith looks, Jameson Williams, like that Alabama, that entire receiving room for the past couple of years has been good. And
yeah, I would agree.
I don't know, man. I don't know.
So Carolina, we got 2 games left, and they're not going to take very long because one of them is Niners Bucks. But Carolina, Carolina goes into Seattle and gets. This is where Carolina goes and wins 30-24. Finish my thought before I go to the next one, but they got to win this game, man. I just feel like they're a better team than this.
This is really what I think it ultimately comes down to. The Chiefs are good enough defensively to get away, and they played such a bad team today as well offensively. They can get away with that amount of turnovers. The Seahawks, they have to play very good on offense to win. Otherwise, because their defense cannot bail them out. Like plain and simple. Geno Smith, he had 3 touchdowns, but that has to be no picks. Like he's got to be hyper efficient. They got to be moving the ball. I understand they didn't have Kenneth Walker or DJ Dallas today. So that was definitely a major factor in terms of what they could do play calling wise. I just think that just needs to be said, and that this is a team similar to the Vikings. It's just that, look, the Panthers, like you mentioned, you can't drop this, especially considering how close they are in the division. I know they got some important games coming up.
Well,
It
they're fighting
makes
for a
the
wild card because
NFC
I think
playoff,
I
that's
don't
interesting.
see the Seahawks catching the Niners at this point. I think the Niners.
No, but even the wild card from that aspect, they
No,
drop
because
one or
now
two
with
games,
this
they're out.
loss, you're opening the door to a backdoor NFC North team like the
Yep.
Lions potentially sneaking in there. I'm not going to say the Packers because I'd love to believe it's going to happen, but I'm not very confident. But you're opening that
The
door to
Seahawks rest of the way, yeah.
another, maybe the Giants do sneak in because they're 7-5-1 and they got that tie, right? And you're 7-6. So it's like this weird, like, I don't know, man. You got to win this home game against the Panthers. That's kind of what I have to say about it. It's, this is just disappointing. I think you hit the nail on the head. They got to take care of the football better, and they got to win at home. They got to win at home.
Plain and
That's what they're
simple.
known for.
The
So
defense has been having a lot of stinkers at home, and I get the offense didn't help them out, but to
They scored 24
Geno Smith, and
points.
I was about to say, to their credit, like the entire year, this offense has been overperforming in a lot of people's eyes.
Yeah.
So for their defense just not being able to really this in all season get their footing and be competent, even if they slide in, I think at the beginning of the season I was like, man, Seahawks playoff team. If they get in, I think they're out right away. Plain and simple. It doesn't even matter who they play. I just think defensively they're just lacking so many pieces.
Yeah, because they're
They
not going
got
to
a
have a
couple of young
home
guys that
game.
are okay.
They're not going to
No,
have a
they're
home
not.
game.
So it's tough sailing for them right now.
Yeah.
But I think the toughest sailing right now is a guy who every year we talk about riding out in the sunset. Boy, I mean he's looking to get away and out almost as quickly as possible.
I
I
don't
feel
think he's
like
retiring, if I'm going to be
no,
honest.
I just don't
I
think
think
he's
he's
gonna
going
play with
somewhere
the
else.
Buccaneers.
No,
Yeah,
I think he's
get
going
out of
somewhere
there.
else.
He can't be there, man.
He's taken on this LeBron-esque role in his last couple of years of his career, which I think is funny. But
Yeah,
why not, man? Like, go chase rings. You're 45 years old, for crying out loud. And,
right.
he's one play away at this point from being done forever, right? That's how old he is, right? If he tweaks
I'd agree.
anything, he's not coming back from an ACL. He's not coming back from any sort of injury at all, depending on the severity. He could be done, right? He's that fragile.
Yeah.
And they're just bad. They are their
There's a
defense.
bad football team. I thought their defense. I was way off. I'm just gonna own up to it. I thought predicting this. I was like, oh, Brock Purdy against Tampa Bay's defense. I
No,
thought,
their defense has
man,
underperformed all year. I would agree.
oh,
I yeah.
I thought they'd step up a little bit, man. Just to 35-0 was an accurate score pretty early, given the, I mean, it was like third quarter. This was bad. This was really bad. I don't know where the Buccaneers go from here. Even if they make playoffs, we could set up a scenario of who they play. We've already talked about some like the Eagles, Cowboys, Vikings. Like
I'm
they don't
starting to
match up.
doubt my
Like not
theory.
even close.
And I'm not writing them off because they have Tom Brady, and I'm never gonna do that.
Yeah, we
But
can't like
to
logistically
get to
do
the
it.
Super
But
Bowl,
wow.
in my opinion, to get to the Super Bowl right now, and I wouldn't have said this 3 weeks ago, but now it's even more so. They're gonna have to get through San Francisco. I
Yep.
think anybody's gonna have to get through San Francisco. I think that they're the best, second best team in the NFC. I have to say that, but in my opinion, I think they're better than the Eagles. But I don't want to say that
It's
out
gonna be a good
loud.
game.
You know, um, look, they are really good defensively. They've won 6 games in a row. They have the last pick in the draft coming in and going 16 of 21, 180 yards and 2 touchdowns. So does exactly what he needs to do. How different is that
Yep.
from a Garoppolo stat line? It's not.
So I
And they
kind of knew
traded
they were
for
gonna be
this.
okay.
They traded for this guy named Christian McCaffrey. He was 14 carries for 120 yards, and I know Debo went down today, so that's a concern. But is it a concern? I guess.
Yeah, they still find a way to win, and it's just I just have to tip my hat. It's just fantastic coach.
Yeah.
Really, it's just Shanahan has just been lights out all year. Injuries to whoever, defense, offense, they just keep winning. And so when they start to just do things like this, and they kind of crush the Dolphins as well, not as bad, but oh, scary team.
I mean, look,
It's really
man,
scary.
I hate to be that guy, but we've talked about the Falcons catching up. Panthers are 1 game back now.
That's
This
really
division
not
is
that crazy.
abysmal. But like
Yeah.
it's just like, if the
Oh,
Panthers can knock off 1 or 2 more teams, maybe they win the division.
like 7-10 might actually be the winning record.
It's like when
It's absurd.
what year was that when it was the Beastquake in Seattle and they went 7-9
7-9,
and
20. It was at
they beat the number
20,
one seed.
2011.
I want to say something like that. It was still Hasselback, wasn't it?
It was 2010. It was 2010. That was a Packers year, right?
It's possible. It's
Yeah,
possible.
because I think the Saints went into Seattle, and then we had to go into Philly, and we go into Philly, get
It
it
was
done, and
20.
we
It
were
was
projected
2011.
to
So it was
2011.
the
Okay,
Packers year because it was January 2011.
Right, technically. Okay, so it's 20 cents season for, our
Yeah.
sake, but interesting.
Yeah.
That's very reminiscent though.
Yeah. It's a little weird. So the last thing on our agenda, now we've gotten through all the games. Last thing on our agenda, Fantasy Frenzy. And it's good to be back in the win column, man. A little bit of a beat down this week
Yeah,
from your boy. But you did have a couple bad beats, and I had a couple really good beats. So
I think my entire team was bad beats, if I'm gonna be
yeah,
honest.
I'm up
I don't think a single
144.
guy hit.
I'm up 144 to 98. Yeah, you got 16 out of Burrow, which is average.
It's like the
12 out
lead
of
of the day.
Mixon, 8 out of Cook, bust. Amon-Ra St. Brown, who I thought had the best matchup of the week, at 13 points. Is weird.
Yeah.
Diggs
All
goes
that
for 6
scoring.
points. Diggs goes for 6 points. Fryermuth did score a touchdown. He went for 12. I think that was a good, given the landscape of tight ends, if you can get
Yeah.
that. But it didn't really
Nice.
matter. Lamb went for 8 points, and then Kicker went for 9. Baltimore at 11. But I still have Tua, and McCaffrey went for 29. Pollard went for 22. Chase went for 28. Metcalf for 18. Hawkinson had 12. Garrett Wilson had 14. My kicker had 12. My defense had 9. So
Yeah,
I
everybody
didn't.
showed up.
Everybody showed up. So good. I think I'm going to pass you too in total points again, and I'm still going to be 2 games back, which is just so stupid.
Yeah,
But
that's fantasy fans. It's just how it is. You know what I
it's
mean?
all fantasy football, and that's just the way
Oh,
things. That's the
it's
way
a
it
crazy
goes.
world.
But I'm going to look at the score of the Dolphins game right now.
That just started. Yeah, I'm
Just
excited for
started
that one.
0-0, so still in the first quarter. But yeah, any other closing thoughts?
No, honestly, this is probably the game of the night here, or day even. I mean,
I would agree.
given the slate.
Yeah, we had a couple boring games today.
Yeah, the afternoon window was. I mean, the Chiefs game became kind of entertaining, but it was like you never really thought the Broncos had a chance.
Yeah.
So this should be better, and our picks literally hinge on tomorrow night's Patriots Cardinals, which
Yeah, we are both
added some
6
hard
and
knocks
5
to
right now. We both have the
bias.
Dolphins.
Yeah,
So
this will be interesting.
it'll be another week of being 1 or less wins apart
Yeah, like
from each
it's
other.
really week to week here, so that's really cool. Yeah, I don't have a whole lot to add other than it looks like, unless something changes. I talked to Luke Tuesday. He should be back with us. We
All
should be
right,
having another edition of
bring back
the
Mr. Luke
yeah,
for
the
NBA Tuesday.
got the 3-man panel instead of 2. Definitely leads to more
Get
interesting
some
conversation. And
Warrior Celtics talk going, because that was pretty big.
it'll be talked about. I think the Pelicans is going to be a really great
Oh, I
story. We
cannot
got to
wait to
touch on
I
though,
cannot wait to crap on the
and
Suns,
how
man.
legit this team's going to be. We'll just give that as a little early preview because wow, they look insane, and Zion is finally starting to get talked about, which is crazy because before getting drafted, he was like one of the most talked about athletes. Even even in
Yeah,
college,
he
and
kind of
just
disappeared.
yeah, they just kind of wrote this guy off, and well, he didn't write back. So
I don't think he got
looking
written
forward.
off like Geno
Yeah,
Smith.
there's all people.
He
He's
didn't spend
fat. He's
10 years as
overweight.
a
He's
man.
no, yeah, that's fair. That's not the
He
same.
just was
Not the
injured.
same in that. Yeah.
But
Nonetheless, going to be entertaining.
yeah. So as always, guys, be sure to check us out on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. We'll be back Tuesday for NBA Tuesday, and yeah, we'll be back Thursday again. We'll stay on our normal schedule. But thanks for listening, guys, and we'll see you guys Tuesday.
Yes, sir.